treat for you. And we're so glad that you have joined us today. We've got a great mix of product and research, as well as we're going to go behind the scenes today and show you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing at Microsoft from a Copilot and Champions perspective. So we've got a great group of presenters. They're going to share and introduce themselves as they kind of come and take the stage, and really excited to kind of share what they have today. So if you're new around here, and I would love to see either by dropping in the chat, how many of you joined us for the first Masterclass series? And we did a series 1, and I'll show that slide here in a second, but we did a series 1 where we kind of went really deep. And this next series is really kind of taking it to the next level. So if, for example, you want to go back, that AKA link at the bottom, that is going to take you to past, present, and future sessions, including the recording and the slides. So before you ask, that is where those are going to be posted. So really good opportunity for you to be there. The other thing you'll notice on this slide is we have a Viva Engage Masterclass badge, and we know many of you love badges. And new this time is we're going to be administering badges to those of you who have participated. So if you stay all the way to the end of the session, we actually have a certificate for you. And then within the next coming days, we will be having you kind of share, and it'll come from Credly, and you can apply it and add it to your LinkedIn profiles as well. All right, this is what I was talking about for season 1. If there's something in here that we share that you're like, hey, wait a second, I need to go a little bit deeper. And again, all the content, the slide decks, and the recordings are posted here, especially from analytics perspective or a community management, or maybe you're here from corporate communications. We would love to have you dive in deeper, grab these slides, and keep going from there. As you're kind of learning things throughout this whole process, feel free to share on LinkedIn, tag myself, or we would love for you to join our customer community. So many of you are already a part of our customer community, but if you're not already a part of our customer community, I have one other slide that I'll flip to that in a second. We would love for you to be there. And while we work really hard to provide virtual options for us to connect, there is no better place for us to be together than the Microsoft 365 conference. In April, the team is coming together face-to-face. We would love for you to kind of be there as well. And we're so excited for you to kind of join. And I actually got the code shared, or what am I trying to say? I got the coupon code extended to the end of the month. So if, I know some of you are coming over, or you might be over in Australia, but for those of you who are maybe closer, and this could be an opportunity, we would love to meet you in person. Here's a link, and I'll drop this in the chat later about our customer community, but we would love to continue the conversation there. All right, so here's what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to kind of start out from a leader perspective and start there. We're going to dive more deeply into the conversations about communities and adoption and kind of peer-to-peer. And then we're going to head into experts and agents and kind of what that looks like as well. We're going to end with what's in it for me. We've got some really great practical ways for you to take this stuff and run with it as employees as well. So stay tuned for that. And then kind of across the bottom, you'll see different licensing keys. For the most part, just about everything we share with you is available in your Microsoft 365 existing licensing. There are very few things that we'll share with you in this session in particular that you need the CNC license. There are things in this conversation that we're going to have today that do require the M365 Copilot license, and we kind of pull that out and call that out as well. All right. As we kind of get set up and we talk about a little bit about what this looks like, if you've been paying attention at all to any of the Microsoft conversations, you've probably heard us talk a little bit about what this looks like to be on the journey to a frontier firm. And that's no different from a community perspective and how that looks like from, what we're thinking about with Viva Engage. We know that communities are a critical enabler for you all and for companies who are aspiring to be frontier firms. We're going to talk about this in a variety of different ways as we go along the conversation today. One, from also a peer-to-peer based learning, and two, connecting with experts as well. So this kind of slide frames up what we're going to be talking about a lot today. We're going to be talking about, here's the toolkit, and all of this stuff is pretty much already available. Some is in public preview right now, but still available for you to try and get your hands dirty with this as well. The Copilot Adoption Community, agents and communities that are out of the box, that no code required for you to pick up and run with, as well as Copilot in Engage, as well as Engage content in Copilot. There's a lot of really great things here, and we're going to walk through and demo and share with you some best practices kind of along the way. Here's how we've set up today's conversation. We're going to kind of start at the top. We know that when leaders go first and kind of spearhead the messages, we know that it is so important from an AI and adoption perspective. However, we know that the conversation doesn't stop there. We really need that peer-to-peer support, that bottoms up and the top down to kind of go hand in hand. But where do champions play a role in this? And how do experts find their footing and get multiplied and scaled throughout the conversations here? We'll talk about all of that kind of in the context today. And then we'll end with, what about you as an employee? So stay tuned. That's kind of where we're off to. And the first kind of section we're going to start with is leaders. I'm going to pass it over to Paula, and we might need to refresh the deck here. So give us 1 second as we refresh the deck, and we will go ahead and start with leaders. Take it away, Paula.
All right. I'm Paula Welling. Sorry, I needed a little bit of walking music, apparently. I'm a researcher on Viva Engage, and today I'll be sharing research focused on leaders and what leadership communication looks like in this AI era. Last quarter, I conducted a study with senior leaders on communication with their employees. And something that was interesting from this study is these leaders said that they needed help connecting with a generation that they see as fundamentally different in how they communicate, what they value, and how they relate to authority. So the research I'm going to be sharing with you today investigates the other side of this communication challenge, how this new generation experiences connection and communication at work. So to understand this new generation culturally, I conducted a study with 61 participants between the ages of 20 and 29 years old from 15 countries working full-time in enterprise organizations. They are a generation that came of age during a global pandemic, will soon represent 30% of the global workforce, and they've been identified as cultural leaders in digital communication, with their norms around short video, informality, and reactions diffusing into mainstream tools and older age groups. A key finding of this research is that there are 4 pillars to connected communication according to the study participants. Relevance, which means that the communication matters to my role, my context, and my current priorities. Effort, I can tell that real thought and care went into creating this. Signal, I can grasp the core message and action instantly without noise or clutter. And safety, meaning that I can engage in this communication in a two-way communication without personal or professional risk. This is a very high-level view, but it forms a useful structure for creating and evaluating leader and corporate communications and augmenting those communications with AI. So for today, we're going to be focused specifically on effort, but I'm going to have an opportunity to come back in Masterclass 3 to talk a bit about the other pillars. The important thing to note is that this generation has an enormous desire to feel connected to their leadership and to their organization. So I have a question for you. What percentage of new generation employees do you think expect to have some kind of two-way interaction with leader communications? Drop a number in the chat, just a guess. And let's see. So the answer is 97%. In our study, 97% of participants in 15 different countries, so it's not necessarily a regional thing, expect communication to be two-way with leaders. And here we can say there's an expectation that they should be able to ask questions directly, give anonymous feedback, that they can like or react to communications with emojis, that they can DM their leader directly, and they can comment publicly on communication. What you'll see here is there are 3% who don't expect to interact at all, but that's a very small percentage. So when we think about connection, it's important to think about where it starts. We sometimes have the story of, for example, leaders putting out a survey or corporate communications putting out a survey and no one's really answering. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because this came up a lot in the study, which is from the participants' perspective, it starts with leaders. That leaders start by essentially answering those survey questions. They show vulnerability, they show humanity. Employees then test leader authenticity with a bit of feedback. The leader responds positively and acts on that feedback. And then employees see impact and want to learn more. Leaders answer questions, continue to act, at which point in time we've cultivated that reciprocal relationship where we can start to essentially trust the feedback that we're getting back from employees, that they feel comfortable actually telling the truth about how things are going. And they essentially become advocates for leaders, and we have a deepening of trust. And so I think we all know, and we've come across this before, is that it does start with leaders making an effort. And some of that effort is things like answering the questions you would put on a survey. So one of the pillars of connected communications that we're going to talk about today is effort. And I'm going to read you a definition because I think it's worthwhile. The observable investment of personal consideration by the sender in crafting message content, tone, and contextualization specifically for the intended recipient or recipients, as distinguished from automated, templated, or undifferentiated mass communication approaches. So let's hear a little bit about what effort looks like from one of my study participants.
Hey guys, so in the last screenshot that I uploaded in the prompt, you can see that this is an email that we received from a senior level manager from Cary, US about Gandhi Jayanti, which was celebrated in India on the 2nd of October 2025. So you can see that it just contains an image and just one sentence about the actual occasion, nothing else. It doesn't even contain any greetings to start off the message or any of the leader's particular thoughts or explanation about those thoughts. So I felt like while the format was fine, the timing was great, the length was okay, I guess. I can't really say anything about the length per se. It felt a little short, but because there was no thought put into it, I felt like this is something that the leader is wishing us for from his own side and doesn't really need to do it per se. But it just feels like it's for show because it's so short, has no real greetings or anything to, make it feel like it's a more warm tone, a more, happy tone that they're wishing us for something. I felt like it was just one of those messages that the leaders have written and scheduled in a hurry because they have to send it out to their employees. Wherein I understand that most of such leaders wouldn't have time to record messages or write full blown messages to employees in a particular country for a particular occasion because there's so many countries and so many occasions. I still feel AI could help improve this because AI could generate a message. They could just check it out or change it a little bit and let AI maybe record a video of them, essentially create a video of them to send out to employees, which would actually make us feel like a little bit effort went into it. We feel a little connected with the leader. So I feel sure it's great to wish employees, but with some thought and effort instead of just such a short message and no effort per se.
So I think one of the things that you can notice there, and I think that's one of the beauties of doing research with people who are between 20 and 29, is I feel like for some folks, they see these messages and they just don't worry about them. But for this generation and them starting to receive these kinds of messages, A lack of effort by leaders impacts trust and connection. So good intentions are not sufficient. It can't be a checkbox exercise. Feeling undervalued by minimal effort is an authentic feeling. Disconnected from leadership. And I think also that kind of call to like, get some help, busy leader. It can be better. They would like to see better. So what is important to note here is that there is a price of admission for connected communications. In sociology and economics, signal cost theory states that for a signal to be credible, it must carry some cost to the sender. Cost demonstrates commitment and authenticity. So when leaders communicate on sensitive topics, the costs are rarely monetary. They come instead through cognitive effort, the time and attention required to think deeply, draft, and refine a message that anticipates diverse interpretations, emotional labor, so the mental and emotional energy needed to regulate one's own feelings while crafting language that attends to others' emotions. So, for example, expressing empathy during a layoff, and vulnerability, which is embracing the risk of being real. And this quote here reflects kind of what I would say is this is a strong trend in the research, and this quote kind of reflects that, which is the less professional I see the video of the leader, the more authentic I feel it is. If it's them in their car at the end of the day taking a selfie, definitely more authentic. And this is something that, I mean, this is a TikTok generation, but this is something that appears over and over again. And especially as our written communication becomes more influenced by AI, that value of the spontaneous video is becoming something that's more and more appreciated, I would say, and more connected. So here's what communication effort looks like to participants. When we ask them the most effective way for leaders to communicate, if they want to be seen as authentic, credible, and inspiring, by far what participants really want is they want to hear a clear explanation around why decisions are being made. They want leaders to admit mistakes and explain what was learned. They want acknowledgement of individuals and teams for their successes. And they do want to hear personal stories that connect to real world decisions. So here's another question for you. Where is the line? Is it okay, given all of these things, for leaders to use AI for communications? Again, you can drop your thoughts in the chat, and let's hear one of our participants talking about the use of AI for connected communications.
I don't mind knowing that something came from AI, as long as it doesn't sound like AI, like, well, I could have done this with ChatGPT or stuff. But it's personalized, it has the right tone, it has the right course of action, it has the right intention on the communication. All those factors have to be taken into account prior to generating an AI message that feels just like a massive message, and that it was done by a robot. So I feel that putting those special little things, putting your tone, putting your intention into it, and outline what you need, it's what is key for using AI.
I will say the majority of the participants in the study were definitely fine with leaders using AI, but they also wanted leaders to be good at AI. They would talk about that they would like their leaders to be better at prompting, for example. And I know when they're talking about leaders, that also includes corporate communicators. But they were able to notice so many AI tells, and they're very sophisticated in this space. So what you're seeing here is there are things around writing style, including leaving in some of that AI, like, I made this message for you, including those. The tone in the voice not reflecting how real people talk. So context, a lack of situational appropriateness. They also notice things like writing style. Is it an overly predictable structure? Certain fonts, generic messages missing, again, kind of tone, and tone really to the extent that participants were noticing word choice. This is not a word my leader would choose to use. And AI generated audio and video. And I think this was really interesting area because this audience was very critical of AI generated video. This is definitely a place where they were reading things that really didn't feel authentic. And one of the things is, as we're using AI to create more written communications, again, that value of authentic video, authentically from the leader, not AI generated, is one of the things that they were especially thoughtful and critical about. And there's also something more philosophical going on. We have spreadsheets, electron microscopes, space telescopes, 3D modeling, GPS. These are all technologies we use to extend our capabilities to think and act. And it's fair to say that participants expect leaders to expand their abilities with AI. And this is a quote from one of the participants. It's articulating in the way that they can best find words right now. And their sense of it is there's always the human mind behind the prompting that goes into the message. It has to be that half is the person thinking, creating, and the other half is the AI itself, whatever that is. We have a diversity of thought. We have to bring together the thoughts of humans and machines. And so I think a really good rule of thumb for using AI in leadership communications and generating connected communications in general is that we trust AI to be on point for productivity. And that can be routine status updates, scheduling, coordination, summarization of long content, translating assistant, template formatting, first draft generation. But when it comes to connection, people must be on point for connection. And so that means if we're doing recognition and gratitude, we're apologizing, conflict resolution, team building, cultural transmission, any communication where the relationship is the point, people need to lead and own these communications. And so for a final section, before I let you go to our next folks, let's take these ideas for a little test drive. And so what I have here is, I know we were really focused on effort today, but I have just a little exploration. If we were to say, these are the ways that people want to have connected communication, what might that look like? So here's a traditional leader communication, sharing an upcoming organizational change around AI, and I'll just skim it for you. Dear colleagues, I'm pleased to announce we're embarking on an exciting journey to transform how we work. Starting March 1st, we'll be rolling out new enterprise AI productivity across the organization. You can kind of skim it too. There's been an evaluation process. There'll be assistance for tools. You're expected to use them. There is certification. Please direct any questions to the AI Transformation Office at aitransformation@company.com. Best regards, Jennifer Martinez, our Chief Executive Officer. And there's also a 42-page implementation guide, security documentation policy handbook attached. And so when we think about this with regards to a connected communication, that this is an email that seems like it's pretty clear and straightforward, but the question would be, is it connected? And so if we were to assess this communication, and this is just us trying to do an assessment from the perspective of connected communications, what we would say is first relevance, and we're going to give it a 28%. So what we can see here is that the single message is treating 15,000 employees globally identically, despite having vastly different contexts and timelines. From an effort perspective, we're giving it a 35 because the message reads as a corporate announcement rather than a human connection from a leader who cares. Signal, next, and we will get to this in the next masterclass, but really, how hard is it to interpret the information? Where's the key information? What do I have to do based on this email? And safety from the perspective of, am I safe as an employee to respond? This is a major change announcement with no opportunity for dialogue or mechanism to address concerns. So what would we predict if we sent this out? I think we would imagine that employees would be 43% positive, 61% might do the training, voluntary adoption might be low, people might be using their own AI, and there's a pretty decent idea that there's going to be rumors or misinformation spread. So we have an opportunity to think about how we would make this communication more connected. And I'm just going to share some of the ideas here of how we might increase relevance. We might have different versions for different audiences. We could tailor the content depth to match the urgency. We could acknowledge early adopters as experts, not beginners. With effort, we could explain why the organization has decided to embark on an AI transformation at this point in time. The leader could record a 1 or 2 minute video sharing their personal journey with AI. We could replace the corporate language with direct conversational tone, and we could acknowledge real employee concerns before they have to ask. And with regards to signal, there's an opportunity to make this more concise. With safety, there's an opportunity to really commit to this being a dialogue of change as opposed to an announcement of change. Oh. Sorry. Ha, and that's me. And so what we can see here is that AI has a lot of work that it can help us with, and it should be doing. And we have work that is still best in our kind of in our field. So we can expect AI to do things like audience segmentation at scale. Let's imagine those 15,000 people as each receiving a meaningful message directed directly to them. AI can flag tone, suggest fixes, restructure content for clarity, predict concerns, monitor dialogue so we can kind of see how that conversation is going, handle logistics, do monitoring. But leaders and corporate communicators still need to decide what matters most for each group. They need to bring an authentic voice and vulnerability, confirm priorities and accuracy, show up, listen, commit to respond, and make the connection real. Because what we see here is that AI does not replace the leader's voice, it amplifies their intention and ensures that the message connects with each recipient. So I'll wrap up here with an Engage post that I came across recently. And this is Satya talking about AI transformation. And for me, in my role, I see this as relevant. I see that there was care given, tone, connection in this message. The signal is accessible, and I've been invited to participate. So I hope you find the material that I've shared with you today helpful, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the next masterclass. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula. I just love the content and the research that she shares. One of the things that we just announced is we actually have a brand new ebook that highlights some of Paula's research and a little bit of Taylor Swift and some really great things, but it's a really great opportunity for you to dive in. And it's actually from one of our corporate vice presidents. It's his perspective about why and how he uses Engage kind of from his authentic style. So would love for you all to check that out as well. This is brand new. We released it, I think, early last week. So would love for you to take that and kind of see some things that we never thought that we would say together. All right, as we move into the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about, it's not just about the top down. What about kind of that peer-to-peer learning and that?
Everyone, hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up if so.
Great.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Hello, everyone. Great to be here with all of you today. My name is Soumya Govineni, and I'm the product manager for the Copilot Adoption Community. And I'm excited to dive into what makes it a special tool as organizations look for effective and interesting ways to diffuse AI and scale AI, specifically zooming into peer-to-peer learning. Right? Now, as many of you in this room know, something most transformation teams learn the hard way, transformation doesn't happen because people were told to change. It happens when people see people like them trying something, getting value and making it safe and normal to follow. Peers shape habits, and habits are what scale transformation. When we distill what peer-to-peer community does best, it comes down to 3 levers. Social proof converts intent into behavior. As you know, most employees already intend to use AI. The gap isn't awareness, it's momentum, right? And in adoption contexts, research consistently reinforces a simple truth. People move when they see credible peers move. When someone in finance posts, here's the prompt I used to reconcile variances in 12 minutes, it does more than any training deck. It makes AI feel real, safe, and repeatable and not theoretical. So therefore, social proof just turns, I should try this into I tried this and it worked. The second aspect is a modern adoption model, right? Where you're shifting from training to enabling. Traditional adoption assumes teach people first, then they'll do it. Modern adoption flips it. Let people learn in the flow of work through open forums, peer discussions, and self-guided exploration. That requires infrastructure, not just content. A place where people can ask what prompt worked for you? How did you handle data sensitivity? What's a good starting point for my role? Right? And so Viva Engage's Copilot Adoption Community is designed for exactly this purpose. So it's purpose-built peer learning at scale with the credibility, participation, and rhythm that all of you already know how to orchestrate. Last but not least, and I think this is the point that Paula earlier touched as well, where power users drive secure adoption. Here's the part that's often missed. Community doesn't just drive usage, it drives responsible usage. So power users don't just consume, they model, right? So they share what works, what doesn't, and how to do it safely. And we have, as you can notice at the bottom of the slide, we have some of the research papers, some of them from Microsoft itself on a ton of research on peer-to-peer learning for your reference later. So the evidence is clear. Power users tend to have higher engagement with sanctioned AI tools and lower reliance on unsanctioned tools. So if you want to scale adoption and have fewer shadow AI risks, the best investment is to activate power users as visible guides inside a community so the safe path becomes the easiest path. Net, if you want Copilot adoption that's fast, durable, and safe, build the habit loop. Peer-proof it, try, share, and repeat. And that's what a community does. So I think in that context, we are excited to introduce the Copilot Adoption Community, which is a pre-built community designed to accelerate peer-to-peer learning. You can use the template to make it your own, starting with the name to its end-to-end branding, look, and feel. Now we'll watch a short video. It doesn't have any audio or subtitles, but we are going to unpack that in the subsequent slides. And we'll also share the YouTube link with audio and subtitles after the session for you to watch and share at your convenience. So I just want to talk about, as we previously mentioned, the Copilot Adoption Community is an out-of-the-box solution available to all Engage tenants. So it can be activated with a single click and is accessible to all tenants with Engage enabled. So if you have a tenant that is Engage enabled, you can activate CAC and start with pre-seeded structure and guidance, no heavy lift. So this gives you a safe, governed home for how we use Copilot here. So now that you've seen what the experience looks like, the natural question is, why a Copilot adoption community? Because most organizations adopting Copilot need more than tools and licenses. They need a living AI playbook, a place where employees can learn in the flow of work, see what's working, and build confidence over time. CAC is that space. So there's a very practical reason that matters right now. Everyone's overloaded. The pace of Copilot and AI updates is relentless. New capabilities, new guidance, new admin considerations, and most teams simply can't keep up. Curate it and translate it into what employees should do differently day to day. So this community, CAC, becomes the single place where those updates, best practices, and real-world Q&A are captured and easy to reference later, so institutional knowledge doesn't get lost in chats, emails, or one-off trainings. And it's not just a static repository. The knowledge in CAC is fed back into Copilot, which is that little icon on my screen on the top right, where you can see the Copilot icon on the right. So when employees search or ask questions, the answers are grounded in what your community is learning. And that creates a reinforcing loop, right? So better community knowledge makes Copilot search more relevant, and the usage signals help continuously improve what people can find and reuse. And the other aspect of why CAC is it's not just an empty community you have to invent. It comes with Microsoft curated weekly content that we also refer to as suggested content, which is very unique offering to CAC. Things like prompt of the week, Copilot journey guidance, and short how-to videos are all part of this weekly content that you'll receive. For corporate communicators and adoption teams, this solves the hardest operational problem, which is sustaining momentum without creating a content treadmill. You get pre-seeded posts and conversation starters that keep engagement fresh and aligned to what's changing. And last but not least is it builds a knowledge flywheel. As employees ask questions and share what worked, CAC turns into an always-on learning system, supported by features like related questions that help people discover answers faster and reduce support load, right? And the screenshot on the right is the point. This isn't theoretical. Real customers ask real nuanced questions such as licensing, capabilities, governance, and they get peer and expert clarity in context. That's how you create adoption that scales. One place for updates, one place for learning, and one place where knowledge compounds into measurable impact. Now let's talk about suggested content, which I touched upon in the earlier slide. And it's basically designed to remove the biggest execution bottleneck that we in the community-led adoption, right? So the content treadmill that I keep referring to it as. Instead of asking your team to constantly create or curate and guess what will land, Microsoft provides the ready-to-use editable content that you can edit, schedule, make it your own, schedule the post so you have this content calendar ready to go for consecutive weeks ahead, right? And we curate this content from across Copilot Chat, Microsoft 365 Copilot, and Copilot Studio, so it's easier to spark conversations and sharing consistently. And we also pull these from trusted sources like the Copilot Adoption Center, the Great Copilot Journey, and so on, meaning you get timely, relevant topics that match what's changing in the product and what users are asking for. And I think, and for all of you, as you can see, the value is straightforward. Lower effort to maintain rhythm and relevance, and higher consistency in the habit loop, post, discussion, and reuse, right? In addition to keeping community aligned to the latest Copilot updates in one place. So what is the takeaway from here is that suggested content makes CAC easier to run week after week without adding headcount or burden. Now, up until this point, we've talked about community as the engine for adoption. But there's a practical challenge, of course, which is scale. Questions come in faster than any one team can answer. And that's where the community agent comes in. It's a pre-built agent designed specifically for your Copilot adoption community. It can read what's already happening in the community and importantly, draw from your linked SharePoint resources to draft grounded answers. So straightforward FAQs aren't bottlenecks anymore. Critically, this remains trustless. So your experts and admins can review and verify what gets shared. So the community builds a reliable base of guidance over time. My colleague Kaleem will go step by step on how the agent works and how to operationalize it later in the presentation. So as we go on, I think the last bit of it is once CAC's running, the next question leaders ask is, how do I know it's working? And what should we do more of? And this is where our analytics and Copilot conversations come in. You can review what people are actually saying and sharing in the community and pull out things that matter for driving culture change at scale. Some of the salient things are the sentiment analysis, right? So you get to read on employee confidence and friction, what's building momentum and what's causing hesitation. So you can adjust messaging and enablement in real time. The other highlight of analytics is themes. Instead of guessing what's resonating, you can see the topics that are trending, where people are finding value and where they're stuck. So your content and leadership comms stay grounded in reality. And then, of course, the third is proof of impact. You can highlight the posts and conversations that are driving practical learning. So you can showcase wins, elevate champions, and keep the habit loop alive. Please note that sentiment analysis and themes come with premium or CNC license. And what's coming next is equally important. Copilot conversations from Engage are flowing into Copilot dashboard in Viva Insights. This means your community insights don't live in a silo, but they become a broader part of a broader adoption and organizational insight story. So you're not just running a community, you're running a measurable adoption program that can continuously improve. And so to take us home is this slide, which is after all the outcome we all care about. Copilot Adoption Community isn't just an engagement, it's a usage lift. So based on the Microsoft's internal study, we saw that the CAC users have about 30% higher active days on M365 Copilot compared to users that have not interacted with a Copilot adoption community in a given network. And more importantly, this study was measured over a 12-week period and across a statistically significant sample. So this is a durable signal. It's not a one-week spike. And here, of course, all of you can connect the dots. The reason is straightforward, right? So the community infrastructure creates the habit loop. People see what works, try it, share it, and repeat. So the behavior shifts from occasional use to part of how to get work done. And last but not least, before we wrap, I wanted to address perhaps some of the commonly asked practical questions. First, what if we already have a Copilot community? I believe we had a survey earlier today, earlier a few moments ago before I started the deck, and about 79% of you voted that you all have a Copilot community. That's great. So CAC's designed to complement what you've built. And as the video didn't play, I was going to refer to the video, but you have two parts to go about. If you already have a Copilot community today, you can keep your existing space and convert it, or you can overlay the Copilot adoption features such as suggested content onto your existing Copilot community without losing its history, right? Or you can stand up a brand new Copilot adoption community, which is just a click away and a few button clicks away to customize it to make it your own as a structured Microsoft curated living AI playbook layer that helps standardize the guidance and scales learning across the organization. Well, the second question could be, who can turn this on? Typically, your Viva Engage admin or Microsoft 365 admins or corporate communicators can enable it. So it's a light activation, not a heavy project. What if we need multiple communities? Now, that's a very common enterprise reality. Many organizations start with one flagship adoption community, get the playbook and cadence right, and then extend into role or region-specific communities once the operating rhythm is working. Today, the CAC ships as one official out-of-the-box pre-built community, and we are actively thinking through how to extend this model so organizations can support multiple AI communities while still preserving governance, consistency, and ease of management. So you'll hear more on that shortly. Last but not least, what's coming next? You've already seen the results that show CAC is effective. And that's precisely why we're investing in making it even stronger as a destination. A few things I'll call out. We're investing in making the community ubiquitous, so discovering it is easier. So it's easily discoverable for all of you. So both across Engage, but also as a thoughtful ingress points from Teams and Microsoft Admin Centers. You'll start noticing banners of this community. The second aspect is we'll continue to invest and beef up the suggested content module so admins can keep the momentum without a content treadmill. And last but not least, as CAG continues to evolve, we'll double down on more and more features to make it truly a one-stop official AI playbook, not just for launching adoption, but also for sustaining it as things change, which will be the nature of this game. So with that, I'll conclude my session and thank you all for listening in. I'll hand over to Alison to take us through the next part of the session, and I'll see if there are any questions in the chat. Thank you.
We had some really great questions come in, so definitely take a chance. You answered a few of them on the this last slide, so thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate kind of thinking through all the different pieces. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to kind of move to the next section where we talk a little bit about champions and the champion program at Microsoft. So really excited to have her join, and there she is. Great. Awesome. Okay, Katie, so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Okay, I'm going to try to take control and see if this works for me today. Okay,
got it.
Good. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys about the Copilot Champs community. I work in Customer Zero at Microsoft, in Microsoft Digital, basically leading the Copilot AI adoption and enablement effort for Microsoft employees. So one of the key parts of our strategy for AI enablement at Microsoft is our champions community. And I think Alison mentioned that I'll be at the M365 conference in Orlando in April, and I'll have two sessions then. One goes deep into our adoption strategy, our greater adoption strategy at Microsoft, and the other will focus more on this champions community, what it takes to run a program like that, all that kind of stuff. So for today, I'll try to keep it pretty light and maybe just focus on the fun stuff. And then if you want to hear more, we will be in Orlando. And then also, if you go on Microsoft's Inside Track blog and you search for Copilot Champs, we have tons of information in there. I'm always happy to help. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So anything about champs, I'm happy to help with. This slide is just a quick overview by the numbers of what we've done with the Champs community at Microsoft. And we'll try to reframe this a little bit more to focus on Viva Engage, but just so you know, Microsoft's a massive company. We have a lot of employees, and across the last 2.5 years since we started Copilot Champs, we've had about 10,000 members. There is no reason why any Champs community needs 10,000 members. It's just a popular group, and the only way we kick somebody out of it is if they have a bad attitude. So it's a lot of people that are in there. But what we are very proud of is the fact that we have a really high engagement, and we've been able to maintain that for the last 2.5 years in Viva Engage as well as in Teams. And I think that's something to call out if you're like trying to work on your Viva adoption too, and your engagement in these apps is to cross post in platforms, meet your audience where they are, and bring them to where you want them to be. So we have some information about our strategy behind that as well. Another really fun part about the Champs community is tying back to Allison's point about offering you all badges for your participation is, you know, it's a global program. We have representation across the entire world, the entire company. And so it does get difficult to incentivize folks. So the way that we do that primarily is through the use of digital badging, Credly badges in particular. And we have a really high percentage of employees who participate in our badging program. And then the last column here is labeled Copilot Expo. We could also call this gamification or experiential learning. So that's what we'll get into there. I'll try to skip ahead to that section so we can get into it. That's where the most fun happens here today. Really quick though, like you can probably tell just by like looking at some of these slides, Copilot Champs doesn't look like what you normally see at Microsoft. The background I have here, the title slide that we used here, that's not on brand. We are decidedly kind of grassroots and meant to be different and feel different and rooted in kind of things that feel human and connecting with people in certain ways. So we proudly call ourselves a grassroots movement. See if we can progress here. This is a great slide that you'll want to get your hands on. So like I said, Copilot Champs is a global group of about 10,000 employees across the company, and I run the entire program by myself. I'm the only full-time employee who manages this program. We have lots of people who participate, but I manage the program by myself. And so we have a lot of customers who come in and say, I don't know if I can have a community like this. I don't know what I can do. I don't have the resources. And with some of the tools that we'll hand over to you, some of the research that we've done, some of the work that we've put in, we're hopefully able to equip you to feel more confident in standing that up yourself and putting some automations together. Again, also not a very technical person sitting here running this community, and I've been able to use Copilot and other great tools and the help of other champs to stand up some automations and agents to make it possible to run a community like this. This is a very text heavy slide, but this is where like all the juice is in terms of like, you know, data that backs up this concept. So Copilot Champs is very committed to creative learning approaches. So I love Viva Engage. My team creates a lot of content for Viva Engage and learning for Microsoft employees. Not Viva Engage, Viva Learning. Sorry, Viva Learning. But you know, those traditional learning models that are so great and so powerful and so helpful for so many people. But for AI being a new technology that feels very technical and feels really intimidating to a lot of people, we wanted to intentionally create an environment and learning approaches that feel human, that feel approachable, that feel safe to an extent, and fun is kind of the way that we found to do that. So it turns, you know, the lights on in people's brains to make them feel creative and innovative, open to trying new things, all that kind of stuff. Likewise with peer learning or peer-led training is that lead by example, leading, by example with your peers instead of taking something top down to take action. That really helps build that trust in a tool. Earlier, I used my peer Sarah as an example here, where let's say that I got my Copilot license and I tried it with a few prompts, for the first time. It didn't do what I expected. I'm not, I'm new to prompting or whatever. I didn't like it. And so I kind of shelf it. I'm not going to try that again. I don't like it. But then, a couple of months in, Sarah started showing my team every month what she's doing with Copilot and the projects that she's doing with Copilot, maybe even like a fun graphic that she's making with it, whatever. And I worked with Sarah for a while. I respect her. I think she's great. So, over time, maybe I'm going to be more encouraged to do that again or to try Copilot again. And so there's a lot of benefits that you can get from having those peer-led trainings. And as a landing and adoption team or a team that's owning that adoption strategy, it's a huge benefit for you to enable your employees to help scale that across your company. We'll take another page out of the Mastermind Taylor Swift's book, which is you don't just create a piece of content once and let it sit on the shelf. You create a piece of content and you scale it across multiple platforms. Maybe you do it in Teams and Viva Engage and email and in a webinar, et cetera, to help it live on and on and on. Fun learning experiences is the last pillar here. I know most people probably focused right in on those percentages that are in there. To me, I'm obsessed with the gaming framework of Octalysis. That's what gaming companies use to make games like Duolingo and Candy Crush, so like sticky. If you look up what Octalysis is, that's kind of how that works. And so implementing that concept of Octalysis or kind of psychology-led actions, you can, the best stat here is decreasing the amount of time that it takes somebody to make a habit an automatic habit. So that's the difference between a habit that you think about every day versus a habit that you automatically go and do. An example of that is, however many years ago, we might have still gone to the library to check out or to do research, even though the internet was already around. And then there's a different generation of people who the internet is an automatic habit for, and the library is a secondary habit for if they want to go do research. You get the idea of what I'm saying. So through gamification, through that concept of Octalysis, you can decrease the amount of time it takes for somebody to build that exact habit. And for something like AI, you're doing your employees a massive favor and putting them so far ahead by helping them get there faster. Okay? Again, there's a lot of text on this slide. Sorry about that. Camp Copilot is where we get into the fun stuff. You're going to get at the end of this a Camp Copilot kit. So pay attention here a little bit because in the Camp Copilot kit, I'm giving you 3 facilitator decks with beginner level M365 trainings, but there's talk tracks and screenshots and all that kind of stuff for 3 different levels of M365 trainings that you can lead. You can choose to use our summer camp theme if you want to, but use any theme that you want. Make it fun, make it engaging. We've got templates in there for you. And essentially, it's a guide to do something like that, have an engaging, human-centric learning experience in a virtual world where, not all your employees are going to be there with you on site, where you give them a real, tangible pennant or pins or anything like that or badges. But we can make them, with the help of AI, we can make virtual ones that are just as fun. So definitely dive in and try out the Camp Copilot. It was super impactful and fun for us to run at Microsoft. It led to a huge amount of new users to M365 Copilot. This was something that we did very early on with our Copilot Champs community. We basically took a lot of the stories and best practices that were coming out of these kind of early adopters, and we just enabled them to scale. We started sharing them company-wide in this kind of digital event format. So that was so successful that we did it again in Copilot Expo. And with Copilot Expo, we did it with a little bit more intention, including having a lot of these things. I think we had more than 80 different sessions available that time. So we had a higher participation number of people who just wanted to submit their topics and that kind of thing. We made it more available on demand. We put together a learning leaderboard. So people get points for attending different sessions, for using Copilot. With the leaderboard, also, we're super sensitive to our folks that are in Works Council countries. And so if the article's not out already, it's coming out soon. That'll explain how we set up a leaderboard in a way that protects people's identities if they want to do that, but they can still play. And then we're expanding this and the success that we've had off of that effort into our end-to-end agent learning experience called Agent Launchpad, which we'll, of course, package up and make available to you in the next 6 months, whenever we get time to do it. So yeah, we do a lot of things that are kind of innovative, trying new things, trying to refocus and root learning in experiences, making things feel real, making things like AI feel like a human tool and not something that you need to be afraid of. So we've done a great job. We've had a lot of success with it at Microsoft. Oh, this slide is in here. Oh, another thing that we did that is kind of Swifty, I guess, is we try to reward our champs in different ways. And we have a lot of joy that comes out of that. And we have that come back to us in positive feedback from folks. We make real friendship bracelets that people give out during their Copilot trainings. All that kind of stuff that just kind of like anchors that feeling of authenticity and reality. Again, in an AI training and in an environment where a lot of us who have gotten here kind of got here with the guidance to like be more like a robot, like be more like a computer, act more like a computer to get ahead. And we're trying to kind of reverse that psychology a little bit, being like, no, be more authentic, be more human, and have more success with, things that are more efficient through AI. Okay, super fun. Okay, this is the two, or this slide shows the two assets that you'll get from me in particular at the end of this. That first one is an outline of a Copilot Champs community. It's very straightforward, but there might be things in there that you didn't think of or that kind of help you in setting up your community. And then that virtual skilling framework is Camp Copilot in a box. That's that virtual event kit. So I think that's it for me from time, but thank you so much for having me on. It was great to chat with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie, for that walkthrough. And it's awesome to see all of the work and how all of the folks on this call can benefit from this. So, hey everyone, my name is Kaleem. I am a product manager here at Engage, and my focus is working on agents in communities. And I'm going to take control of this presentation here. Just 1 second. Great. And in this section, what we're going to talk about is some of the work we have going on in agents and how you can benefit from that. So Katie talked about the benefits of the champs and champions. And one of the big aspects is how they can, create engagement, model behavior, and really, in a way, normalize the use of AI and good use of AI really across the board. The other set of people that are really critical for this kind of transformation and adoption is the experts in your organization and in your communities. We all have them. You have seen them as well. People who have developed a sense of expertise based on working in a domain or a specific area for a set of time, or people who are leading initiatives and they have really critical information for how to get going with something or how to do something and so on. In both cases, you've got people who others want to learn from, and their time often is quite limited. But they are really critical in building trust because they can share their knowledge, they can answer questions, and as you'll see, partner with agents to scale up their impact and their effort. So today within communities, we have an experience called community experts. A number of you I know are taking advantage of this and using this as well, which is great. This is something we build really to emphasize the community experts and give them some control over proceedings in these communities. So as a community admin, you can go in, you can assign specific people as your experts. They show up and are highlighted in this nice little section on the community. They get a label next to their name. And then they can now start to do things like mark best answers on questions, mark verified answers. So you can highlight, important and really good responses and trustworthy responses. And the other thing they can do is start to pin and keep the set of pinned conversations up to date so that at any given point of time, people who are in your community get the latest, most relevant guidance as you see fit. So this is great. You can have these communities, they're doing this thing. And what tends to happen is as your community grows, or if it gets really active, maybe you have a new initiative and there's a lot of information that's needed, what you'll tend to see is, people asking the same or similar or repetitive questions, as that community gets going. And for these experts, that can be, kind of burdensome in some sense. If you're answering the same question over and over again, or you're pointing towards something and saying, hey, the information is here, but, people just aren't taking a look. So that's where agents in communities comes in. This is really about helping your experts, your community experts, scale their impact to help save their time and really to help them focus on the areas where they can be most helpful, whether that's acknowledging and verifying certain responses or creating new forms of knowledge and answering questions. So what this is really it's an AI assistant that is going to draft answers to people's questions in the community. And it does this based on the conversations and the knowledge that already exists in the community in the past. So the questions and answers, any content in the community's SharePoint. And the way it does this is it's proactive. So once you, turn this on, as I'll show you, you'll start drafting these based on some of the deep research and reasoning we have implemented. And it gives control to the experts. So you control, how you want it to behave, whether you wanted to post automatically, whether you wanted to get it reviewed, and you are at the control, you control like how this all works. So the best way to do this really is to jump into a demo and to show you how you can get this set up. So I'm going to share my browser here. So let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yep, we can see it. Looks great.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just adjusting something here. Okay, so let's say you came into a community like this, which was a Copilot Adoption Community, like Allison showed earlier, and you are the admin, you wanted to set up the agent. You'll see this thing on the right-hand side over here to add an agent. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And this brings you to a setup screen. Right at the top, you've got some information about the agent, how it's going to work, and there's a couple of links to learn more and get into some of the details and nuances of that. So this is, something all of the community admins you have can read and check it out. And here, under the capabilities section, you've got one important decision to make right off the bat, which is how you want the agent to operate. Do you want it to post responses automatically if it has confidence in these answers that it's drafting? Or do you want it to, require a review from an expert or an admin before it goes ahead and posts it? So that's what this setting controls. So you can turn that on and save it. And you'll see now that this agent shows up on the right-hand side. All of your community members are going to see this thing. And what this means is now the agent is active. So it's going to keep an eye out for new questions that come in. It's going to look for questions that don't have best or verified answers on them already. And assuming those questions have been asked in the last 2 weeks, it's going to see if there's any information in the community that can be used to help answer that question. So every 15 to 20 minutes, it's going to do this. It's going to pick like up to 3 questions to answer and start drafting them up. And at any given point in time, you can come back to the settings and you can change how it works. You also have this piece up here where you can choose to pause the agent temporarily if you want, or remove it at any given point in time. And once you add it, the other thing you get is this piece, which I know some of you have been anticipating for a while, which is the ability to specify a SharePoint site for grounding that may be outside of this community. So as of today, in the public preview, it uses the conversations, it uses the content from the SharePoint that's already connected to your community. But now you have this ability to do, add the site from outside. And to do this, you need to be an administrator or owner for both the community and the SharePoint site that you are trying to use with this agent. So you can't just go and start adding, everybody's site on here. You really have to be in control of that site. And what it will do is to make sure that everybody in this community has access to that site. So you need to actually give it, grant this community's member group access, read access if it doesn't. I'll show you what that experience looks like. So let's say I went and tried to add a sample site over here. It's going to pop something up like this, where it says, hey, for me to be able to use this site, I need to make sure that your community's member group has read access. Do you want to do this? And if you grant access, and just go ahead and add it over here. And this means now it can take advantage of this. But there are a couple of guardrails in place. So if you have any specific permissions on files where, it's not available to the entire member group, or it's got specific permissions on it, you want to use those files. And also it's got some guardrails in place for sensitivity labels. So it will only use or allow you to use sites that have at least the same or lower sensitivity compared to the community or its backing Microsoft 365 group. So I'll go into a community where this has been running for some time, so I can show you actually how this works in practice. This is one that's been set up in this demo tenant for product sales and support. To really learn from the product team, to ask questions, get information on launches so that they can support their customers better. In fact, we at Microsoft have a number of these communities. For Engage as well, we use this. And you can see there's a bunch of different questions coming in. And normally as an expert, if you had previously answered this, you would have to sit down and go find where this post was that you previously answered it, or find the document where it was, or maybe take the time to type it again. But here we've got an agent active, and you can see it's got 7 things that it wants my attention on. So I click that, I go right in, and this brings you to a page where you can now see all of the responses that it has drafted. So here you can see for one of the responses, it's got this information it's put together, along with citations from different conversations from this community. So that's what these numbers are. And at the bottom, it's also got a bit about the reasoning. So it shows you exactly what it did to put this together. It looked through the Engage post, SharePoint, found some things, etc. And as you scroll below, you'll see that you have 3 different actions you can take on this thing. You can choose to approve, edit, or dismiss. If you hit approve, what it means is that, hey, you saying, hey, go ahead and post it as yourself and mark it as verified by me. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like. And let's say we go down over here to this response, I'm going to hit edit. And at this point, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I actually want to take control of this answer, and I'm going to make my own modifications and edits, and then I'm going to post it under my own name. So you'll see that your own profile photo starts appearing over here. So in this case, in the interest of time, I won't make too many edits, but I'm just going to, mark this as post. And if you wanted, you could also dismiss these answers. You can see now here it's got a more detailed response based on the nature of the question and the information available. Here it also links to a SharePoint document that's available. And in this case, I'm gonna just go ahead and dismiss this one, in which case, it will not use this answer. So let's go back to our community and check that out. You can see this response that I approved gets posted. It's marked as verified by me. It's got that, source of stamp of approval, if you will, from me as an expert. And people can take advantage of this. They can use this. And over time, as responses start to come in, if you wanted to take a look at all of the places the agent has helped you out or drafted responses, in the review page, you can go down to this section called Posted, and it'll tell you all of the places where the agent, either posted a response or maybe helped someone with a response. So you can start to get a sense of how this works. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go back to the presentation. I think if somebody can help me just load that one back up. If not, it'll just take me a second.
I got it. And Kaleem, there's a great question in the chat about if you dismiss a response, will the agent try again?
So if you dismiss the response, it will not actually try that same question again.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me go to where we were.
I'll get you there. Give me 1 second.
Oops, sorry.
You got it? No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so while I'm getting to this, you can see how, if you're a novice to agents, if you're new to this stuff, it's really easy to get set up and going with these. You don't need to, have a lot of background, or you don't need an exhaustive Copilot Studio setup either. And we're going to continue to provide more controls and enhance this as we go. So the best part of this is that this is currently in preview. So if you are a tenant admin, you can go in and turn it on for your network. You'll see a banner at the top that looks something like this. But if you missed it, don't worry. You can go to the Engage Admin Center, and you'll have this setting over here, which you can turn on, which simply means that now all of the community admins who have a Copilot license can turn it on and try it out. And we'll close out with a couple of tips for you to get the most out of it. The first thing is to prepare your community. If it has a lot of questions, we recommend setting your default publisher to questions, because the agent only picks up those post types right now. Assign some community experts if you don't have already, and make a note of the Q&A measures and analytics before you get going, because you'll keep an eye on this and how the agent's use is impacting it. The second thing is you can consider, requiring a review before posting at first to get a feel for the agent's responses before you let it post automatically. And then pick the SharePoint sites that are most useful for you, not necessarily everything. Quality matters more than quantity. And then finally, when you're ready, announce the agent, tell people that it's available, who's reviewing it, and so on. You see a sample post over here. This is something that a number of preview communities at Microsoft have also done to inform the members about it. And then last but not least, there's a number of online resources, including an interactive demo that you can circulate amongst your teams so they can get a feel for the experience, and a couple of online resources for getting going with this thing. So with that said, let's take a look at how you can use this stuff day to day as an employee. Ramya?
All right. Thanks, Kaleem. That was fantastic. I don't know if I can up that show, but I'm going to try. Hi, everyone. My name is Ramya Rajashekar. I'm a product manager with Viva Engage, responsible for AI and search experiences. And I'm so excited to talk to all of you today about how Copilot helps employees like you and me get the most value from Engage within the organization. So before Copilot, let's take a quick look, what was life like before Copilot and where we are now. Before Copilot, long threads were really hard to scan within Engage. Questions got buried. Patterns were there, but you had to manually dig for them. And communicators often spent a lot of time sorting than communicating. Whereas with Copilot now, you can instantly pull out questions, identify themes, and give clarity to a messy thread. You can create quick summaries for leaders or partners so they get the signal without all the noise. And it also gives you sentiment, which is something you could never reliably extract just by reading comments. So essentially, Copilot has made unstructured conversations now usable and actionable. And most importantly, AI has unlocked the value of Engage beyond the Viva Engage app, extending the life of those posts that leaders make, the answers that experts provide, and using all of that content as grounding data to provide insights to users outside Engage as well. So let's bring this to life by walking you through a day in the shoes of a typical Viva Engage user. Let's call him David. Think of him as any one of us trying to stay informed, contribute meaningfully, and keep up with the pulse of the organization. I will walk you through the Copilot features at a high level and how they assist David in his flow of work. So let's say David begins his day and he has the same question many of us have. Hey, what did I miss? What happened while I was away? And instead of jumping into a sea of unread posts, Copilot gives him a quick curated view of the overnight activity, the new posts, the trending topics, the things that need his attention. And in just a minute, he feels pretty caught up. Then he hits those long threads, the ones everyone is talking about, but no one really has the time to read end to end. So David now doesn't scroll. He simply asks Copilot to condense the conversation, and instantly he gets the key points, the sentiment, and the decisions made, and he's fully up to speed without the cognitive tax. And a little while later, David wants to understand what leaders and close colleagues are talking about, what direction they're setting, what topics they're highlighting. So he asks Copilot to pull those posts together. Now he's not just informed, but he's also aligned. So this is also when, say, he wants to write up something. Maybe he's sharing a project update or giving feedback from an event he attended. Now, Copilot helps him find the right tone, clean up the structure, and makes his message land with clarity. Instead of spending 20 minutes rewriting sentences, he's now focusing on what he wants to say. And as the day winds down, David wants to contribute, not just consume. So he asks Copilot what's trending across the organization. And in seconds, he's discovering conversations he would have missed, ideas he can react to, insights he can learn from, and communities he can join. And he also checks how his own posts have performed. And rather than digging through comments threads, Copilot summarizes the reactions, the themes, and the sentiment, and it tells him where follow-up is needed and where his message really is resonating. So this helps him close the loop thoughtfully. So essentially, AI in Engage is really built for real work in your flow of work. Copilot in Engage provides context-aware responses tailored to David's role. This is now generally available, as most of you know, for Microsoft 365 Copilot licensed users with capabilities like Smart Catch-up, integrated writing assistance, and scope search. Let's take a look how these capabilities look like in action. So with Smart Catch-up, like I mentioned, David can instantly get the most important updates across his communities, no scrolling required. And with writing assistance, Copilot helps craft clear, polished posts and replies. As you can see in the demo, you can have it use context from Engage or context from docs that you can upload, as you see. And you can use the draft that it produces as is or edit it and post. That's simple. And with scoped search, you can quickly find or recall the right post and information, whether it's something that was shared locally within a community or across the broader network. So you see here it says, show me posts from Adil, and it's bringing back the posts in the recent past across his community from Adil. Now here, let's say David wants advice for how to keep his community engaged and informative. So he summons Copilot to get and see what ideas it has for posts he could make. Okay, so he's saying, hey, give me some ideas. It says, hey, you can do a welcome post, you can do a Momentum Monday type of post. These look pretty good. And oh, it can also show him how to make these posts more engaging with this article. So it gives him some more ideas about how to make it interactive, like asking a question, using visuals, tagging and mentioning people. And look, and even an idea for creating a Copilot challenge fun. So as you can see, Copilot here makes staying informed and contributing meaningfully faster, easier, and more effective. Now, this is the next part, which might be my personal favorite, which is around the fact that Engage content becomes searchable through Copilot across Microsoft 365. What that means is a user does not have to come into Viva Engage. If an employee just asks the BizChat or Copilot chat outside of Engage, something like, hey, do we have guidance on AI processes? Copilot doesn't guess, it doesn't make up stuff. It is pulling from your real community conversations, your actual answers, your leaders' words. And so suddenly every thoughtful Q&A, every leadership update, and every best practice post that was made in Engage has a second life, delivered right in the moment someone needs it. And this is a dream for any communicator, right? Content that signals about users based on their activity in Engage, like what have they posted, what have they commented or replied to, where were they mentioned, what they have shared or was shared with them. So it uses all of these signals in order to present the most relevant and personalized results to the user. Like I said, we're starting with public content, which is generally available, and we're working on making the private content available in a similar manner. Next, I'd like to share some tips for prompting AI so you can get the best experiences from Copilot. Prompting, as you know, is really about giving instructions like you would to another person. The more details you provide, the better. It is definitely an art, not a science. But bottom line, it is beneficial to get familiar with the 4 key ingredients that make up a successful prompt. The first one is the goal. What is it that you ultimately want from Copilot? It is good to be very explicit about that. Next, include context. What is the reason for needing this information? Who else might be involved? Is it for a leadership presentation? Is it for an informal post? Things of that nature. Include the sources that you might want Copilot to reference. So are there any documentation? Is there any reference materials, any conversations? or existing decks that Copilot could refer to in order to base its response on. Finally, set expectations on how Copilot should best meet your needs. Should the output be in a tabular format? Do you want a research type write-up? Do you want a friendly post that you want done? Things of that nature. Also, remember to follow up on your prompts and continue the conversations back and forth with Copilot so that you get more tailored and holistic responses to the task at hand. Here we've tried to put together some starter prompts for you to try out. Hope you find these helpful and you give it a try and you give us feedback. There's always a thumbs up and thumbs down feedback that you can use to provide us information how things are working so we can continuously improve this for you. And we also have a link here to some resources to help you get started and understand how AI and Copilot works in Engage. Hope you found this helpful. And with that, I will hand it back to Allison.
This was great. Thank you so much. Lots of really great chatter in the chat about just all the new things and just the creative ways that our customers can really use Copilot in all different ways. So we're going to wrap up here and just kind of give you a little bit of guidance and best practice. So hopefully you have already started to take away lots of different ideas and notes of what, all the different things that we shared. We'd love for you to just really get started, start trying out things, give us feedback, set up an experiment. Are there communities where you can really kind of push your agents to the limit and try them? If you haven't already started the Copilot Adoption Community, we really encourage you to try that as well. And then think about where else could you be optimizing these different pieces and parts kind of along the journey from adoption, from the leader's perspective all the way down to employees. But wait, there's more. I'm just going to wrap up with the last few kind of comments and just all the different events and things that we have coming up. In case you've missed it, SharePoint is turning 25 this year. I know, it is wild. And the SharePoint team is doing a huge event in March. We would love for you to join that. But also, our team also runs First Fridays, which kind of dives in more to the communicator lens. If you're interested in that, or if you're curious about kind of what's new for communicators and SharePoint, would love for you to join us on First Fridays. We've also kind of talked, I shared earlier about the Engage Chronicles from an ebook perspective. We also have one, if you're new to Viva Engage, kind of that walks through, this would be a great next step for your IT partners and your comms partners, which we have done this at Microsoft Digital and kind of shared our best practices. We've wrapped this up for you in an ebook as well for you to continue to share and learn. I am going to post in the chat about all the different resources and the master classes. So we hope this isn't the last one, and we hope to see you again in future sessions. But if you've stayed this far, here's the certificate for the end of this session. Thank you so much, all of you, for your contributions in the chat and for kind of listening and learning alongside of us. We really do appreciate it, and we're so thankful that you all showed up with your curiosity and willingness to learn more. The recording and slides will be posted in the next week or so, so stay tuned. We are so glad you're here, and thank you all so much. All right, everyone, take care. Thank you so much for joining. I'll leave this up in case you want to grab a screenshot. All right, see you next time. Bye.